Warner, I will let you jump in and go in, and then of course I'll be asking questions and probably interrupting you as you go through stuff. But why don't you kick it off?
Sure. And thanks, Adam, for allowing me to join you all today. I'm Warner Johnston. I have 17 captivating slides for you. It's really going to knock your socks off. A little bit of background about myself. I've been doing public relations, branding, and communications for the past 20 plus years. And I've owned my own company for the past 2 years, where I tend to work with a mix of both of startups, wealth managers, nonprofits, and service organizations. My startup side of the business is really fascinating because I've been able to work with a really wide array of businesses, everything from fintech to cell and gene therapy to robots. I'm doing some stuff with AI right now. And over the past couple of years, I kind of seen the same issues creep in with every startup. They pretty much, at the outset have very little capital, very little time or resources to put into what their kind of external brand is. And then when they do get to the point where they have money, they end up hiring somebody like me to kind of fix all of the work that they either done in-house or by a very well-intentioned Fiverr person. So I put together this slide deck. I've been using it for a couple of years.
In Warner, is the key thesis or takeaway that startups should be thoughtful about this work up front as early as possible so that they don't have to necessarily bring someone in, like hopefully they still bring you in, but they don't need to bring you in to fix things because they started out the right way at the beginning?
No, that's pretty much the right thing. I mean, I have not only put together this deck, I also have a secret page on my website with some articles. I think that most people can really benefit from just kind of following some really simple guidelines. And then, they wouldn't have to do so much cleanup, at the outset. A lot of times there's also some, co-founders, or you have, you have several big wigs with perhaps different titles, but all share equal authority, and they're all kind of going on their own way. I worked with a startup earlier this year that had 3 different websites, and they all had 3 different branded URLs. And they all, like 3 heads of organization who all felt very strongly about their website. When I was brought in, they had actually tried to integrate those 3 websites under one roof. So one of the websites was used for their blog, the other one was used for their main, and I can't remember what the third one was. But I mean, you just can't have that kind of brand disparity. It's like, you have to pick one vision and go with it. And probably the biggest advice that I can give somebody is, you're starting out, using a cookie cutter template website is absolutely fine. You don't need to have anything that's custom coded. You frankly don't even need to have WordPress at the outside for the most part. Most startups pretty much just need a branded brochure website. And Wix, Squarespace, Webflows, these are perfectly fine products. And you'll have a WordPress, pro who will push back and say, oh, well, the search engine optimization sucks. First of all, couple things. A, nobody cares at the beginning. B, they're fine. And 3, once you're actually at the point where you have a lot of money to put into these resources, sure, get something custom, but you'll also be working at that point with a marketing agency like this guy who probably has SEO capabilities that will be able to take care of that. So I think people just need to really just start simple, be consistent, and then just, know that this is going to be a starter. A lot of your plans are going to be starter and you'll expand. Let me go back to the slides, which of course is really not wanting to be shared right now. So let's see. You guys are going to have to see this. This is the only way I can share it. Apologies.
All good.
But you can see that, right? First page?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great. Okay. All right. So Warner, again, I gave you a little bit of an overview of who I am. I've worked for New York City mayor's office, governors. I ran the PR for the I Love New York tourism for a while. I've worked for an international nonprofit for a number of years, and the past 2 years, I've been working for myself and loving it. So that's me, as you can see. I created this slide to really kind of come up with a very simple and practical way to kind of explain branding to people. If you go online and you do a search, you're going to see 1,000,001 different kind of like explanations. I didn't devise this overnight. I really kind of just took a look at the work that I was doing with my clients and what I really thought was the most important. And I also wanted to create a language system just to kind of talk about it. So for the purpose of my presentation, I really focus on 4 things. I focus on the positioning. This is essentially the reason for your existence, and this is going to encompass all of your messaging, all of your brilliant copy from your website to your LinkedIn to your Twitter or Instagram, all those about us sections. This is your investor pitch decks. This is where all that comes from. And then you have your design, which a lot of people get caught up. They think that branding is simply colors and logos, a component, one of 4 in my worldview. The assets, the tools that you're going to use, everything from your website to your blog, and then promotion. What do you do next? Are we talking socials? Are we talking pay-per-click ads? What are we looking at? So this is really where I go. And I do work with startups. I've worked with several where they had a name, they owned the URL, no website, but they had the name and their URL. And I have had 2 clients who have given me essentially cocktail napkins and have said, my husband designed this logo. Can you help me out? Can you build a brand identity around it? And pretty much I can. So I really just try it, like I said, practical and tactical. So the next few slides, I'm going to look at a couple of examples of these 4 areas. So again, the positioning, why do you exist? What is, your purpose? What's your promise? And what's your personality? So purpose, what's the problem that you're solving? Promise, what's your brand promise to your customers? I'm going to help you solve your problem in an expedited amount of time while saving you money and resources. And personality. And this is something that personality is it's an important thing that gets overlooked, especially if you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen who are devising copy at the same time. You might have somebody who's more serious. You might have somebody who's more caring or empathetic. That language does come across. And I'll tell you, ChatGPT is my best friend. And it's a great way to really kind of take a lot of different people's messaging and language and really smooth it out. I wouldn't recommend ChatGPT. I would actually recommend copy.ai, which has a live internet connection. So you could even find a competitor's website, or let's say a company that you want to emulate and model your own startup after. You could literally feed the URL in and say, let me know what the tone is. What are the major points that they're making? And 10 seconds later, you're going to have a lot of great material. So personality is definitely important.
In Warner, how do you think of like good examples of what that looks like? Like if you're a startup, you as a founder might have an idea of what you think your personality should be, but how right or wrong is your sort of gut instinct as a founder for what that is, right? So like, let's say you're a founder. Like founders have their own biases. And of course, in many cases, they're probably very right with those biases because they are a startup person. They're building a product for a very specific niche market or clear identity of their user. Like they hopefully know as a founder, you hopefully really know your ideal client profile and customer profile. So, but what does that look like that we're ones that are really, really good and just super on point in really speak to that user? And how do you know that you're actually speaking to your ICP?
Well, and this is where, I think that there are resources like ChatGPT and there are resources like Fiverr, where you can get, a lot of great information. I think, I don't have one direct answer for you, Adam, but taking a look at competitors and doing a buyer, analysis or, creating buyer personas, that's going to really help you out and to try to figure out What are people looking to, what problem are they looking to solve? What do they want to hear? What type of messaging is really going to appeal? You need to know what your buyer personas are going to be, and you need to know what your other competitors are going to be. I mean, honestly, that it can really be as simple as that. And this is all stuff that people, like, somebody could take my PowerPoint and could take, like, I don't know, I probably have like another a dozen resources that are related. Like when we talk about positioning, I have a messaging framework that I've developed for my clients. I'm happy to share it. It's like, it really comes down to like a 3-page Q&A that I work with my clients. And from there, we develop everything from taglines to the buyer personas. Doing competitor research takes a little bit more time and effort, but it can be done. The reason people come to me is that because I'm able to put it under one house. But for the most part, a lot of this can be done. By startups don't need to spend ridiculous amount of monies to get this done. They just need to be really consistent and be real practical.
And how do you know, Warner, how do you know that it's working or not working, right? As a founder, at least myself, I like to be fairly data driven and thoughtful about when things are working and not, and use data to make a decision. When it comes to like the challenge that I've always had with like brand and positioning is it feels a little bit wishy-washy. You're like, well, I think this is what my target market wants, but I don't really know. Like, how do you know you've really knocked it out of the park, or kind of need a lot of work to fix it?
I mean, absolutely, Adam, especially if you're creating a startup that's, maybe has identified a new problem that nobody has tried to solve before. Like, how do you know? Maybe there are no competitors. There's going to be trial and error. There's going to be A/B testing. But at the end of the day, are you getting customers? Are you making revenue? Like, that's really what's going to, happen. We're all skilled in different things. Everybody on this call has a different skill set. I could literally, like I said, furnish this PowerPoint. It's not PowerPoint, but furnish this slide deck, make access to my Google Drives with all my systems that I've created. And, for the most part, people can execute on their own. Is it going to be as good as what I do? No, because that's my skill set and my specialty. Can I take a look at a website and see automatically what I want to change? Sure can. I've done it for some friends of yours, So, but really at the end of the day, when I work with a startup, when I'm creating their digital assets, I'm asking them to share it with their other colleagues, right? I'm asking them to, like, who are we going to test this website for, with? And then it's just a matter of, okay, like, where are people searching? When people land on the page, how long are they staying? Where are they going from there? Trying to figure out what messages that we're sharing on social are resonating. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a long haul, but you start to get an idea. There are ways to put in systems so that you can test and then strengthen what works and, get rid of what doesn't. But also at the end of the day, dollars coming in, or whatever your form of success is. I have working with, I'm going to call them a small S startup. It's a membership organization. Let's just say startup because it's a new thing and I'm helping starting them up. They just made the decision that they're not going to charge dues for the first year. So, okay, well, cool. So revenue and profits is not going to be a metric that we're focusing on. So we're going to be looking at who's signing up for kind of like a pre-launch newsletter for 3 months prior. That's going to be like one of the measures of success that we look at the beginning. Also, when you talk about wishy-washy, out of the 4 kind of areas that I focus on, positioning is definitely the most wishy-washy. And you could have 3 different people in a room and come up with 3 great ideas that are completely different. It's going to be the most wishy-washy. The rest of the slides, there's definitely more kind of best practices, but this is why I try to simplify it as much as possible.
Yeah. Let's keep moving because I want to make sure we get through a bunch of stuff. We got.
Cool. All right. So I talked a little bit about brand promise. Brand promise is important. It really encapsulates your customer's experience with your business. And so just diving into that second sentence, when crafting it, use 4 components, right? Just try to figure out a formula. Who's the main character? What's the problem, the plan, and the success? So I've given 2 examples here. One of them is just a made up startup, right? Which sounds awesome. And I wish I had this startup, in my pocket. The other one is my company. So for FitBuddy, transforming busy lives with tailored fitness and nutrition solutions effortlessly integrated into daily schedules for a healthier, more energetic lifestyle. Sounds good. And then for me, it's overcoming the hurdles of brand development, lead generation, and media management to propel startups, small businesses, and nonprofits towards lasting growth and success. So I developed these two brand promises, and I'm gonna carry them forward into some other stuff that we look at through this. But for right now, FitBuddy is an app that connects with your calendars and gives you suggested workout routines based on the time that you have free during the day. And the same with meals. And then Borough Communications is the greatest branding and PR firm you've never heard of until today. I added a fun little kiss. So that's a little kiss right there. The most important message I can give people is keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple, real simple. You could literally base, your company's brand promise on what I just wrote, just to kind of give you like a really simple, easy way to get started. I'm going to proceed with slides, but you just shout out, Adam, if you have questions. One thing I really want to focus on for any startups is what your elevator pitch is. We'll take a look at some web assets and we'll take a look at some other things, but what's your elevator pitch? And again, it's very simple. It can be similar to your brand promise. You want to introduce your idea, your product, or yourself, explain its purpose, target audience, and again, problem it solves. And you hear me talk about the problem it solves quite a bit. If you're not talking about the problem that you solve, that's a problem. You want to highlight your unique value proposition. So again, this website, this deck can be shared afterwards. I actually have a link to this deck, so I can share that in the chat.
Well, and I just want to say on elevator pitch, I mean, this is one of the ones that to me, this is like your first impression that you give to anybody you're talking to. And getting this really succinct and clear is so powerful if you can do it well. Just because it's the first thing you tell any investor. It's the first thing you tell any potential employee. It's the first thing you tell any potential customer. And if you don't get that right, you lose people's interest really quickly. And so it's one of these areas that a lot of startups don't put enough time and energy into, and it really hurts them long term because they can't concisely explain who they are, which hurts in every pitch that you might do, which is half the job of a startup founder is pitching everybody about your business.
Absolutely. And that's why I really recommend keep it to two simple sentences. Introduction, highlight the unique value proposition, bam. Play around with it, follow this formula, take it. There's two examples here. We got FitBuddy again, and then we have my own company. And this is really just two sentences. That's it, and practice it. I'm not saying practice it in front of a mirror, but know exactly. And then once you have your kind of baseline elevator pitch, then you can kind of like play around with adjusting it for the audience that you're in front of, So this is like my more generic baseline, elevator pitch. But if I was meeting with wealth managers, it's going to be slightly different. If I'm meeting with nonprofits, it's going to be a lot different, I have no problem in saying that, we specialize in cutting through the noise with a minimum of BS for this call, but am I going to use the term BS in front of a bunch of nonprofits? Most likely not. So again, it's always knowing who your audience is and just kind of being able to quickly kind of change things around. So FitBuddy, for example, I'm actually speaking in front of a women's group later this fall in New York. And funny enough, this elevator pitch slide was actually developed for that group. They really wanted to have an elevator pitch section. So if I was in front of that group, I would talk about FitBuddy being a mobile app that empowers busy women, because it's the audience of women. It's a women's group. So I would really just kind of I'll customize my slides based on them. That's what you should do with your elevator pitch. We're going to speed through a couple things just because I am conscious of time. But so we talked about positioning. The next thing is going to be design. Listen, if you're working with a startup, you are a startup, feel free to go to Wix, Squarespace, Weebly, Webflows. Do WordPress if you want. WordPress For the most part, it can be fairly complicated, and so I'm just not going to talk about that right now. It is fantastic, and I have clients that use it. But Wix, Squarespace, I'm working with 2 startups right now in Squarespace. What's really great is that they have templates. Once I've kind of identified the colors and the logo for the organization, I can plug that into those templates. It's carried through all the design. They're clean, they're simple. But what colors are we going to be using? If you don't have an idea of what your logo is going to be, and if you don't already have a logo that's comprised of at least a maximum of 3 colors, then what I really actually, I do this, especially with solopreneurs and companies that are named after an individual, is I take a photo of them and I feed it into Color-Wise Me. It's actually a online platform to help determine what type of makeup looks best on somebody. And as far as I'm concerned, or makeup and clothing colors, as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to have your own business, and if it's you, if you don't have an idea of what colors to use, feed in a picture and see if those color arrangements appeal to you. Especially for smaller and solopreneurs, it's just a great way to kind of brainstorm some colors. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all that the most used color on websites is blue, so you can never go wrong with blue. What I pretty much recommend is that people have 3 colors. You have your primary, your secondary, your tertiary. Your tertiary is also known as your accent color. It might show up in about 10% of your website. Your secondary about 30%, and the remainder should be your primary. I'm a big fan of white, blue, and yellow. I use that a lot, or red. Logos, I can't tell you how many. Oh my gosh, I work with a designer for more heavy, for projects that are more heavy design wise, right? Like I have limited skills, but I'm working with my design partner. She's in Oakland, and she's currently fighting with our client about logos. I mean, I swear to God, people spend more time fighting about logos than they do about messaging, which I feel is completely reversed. I have no problem with like a really simple font logo and some type of brand mark. That logo was created for free on looka.com. And it's a nonprofit that I do pro bono work in the Bay. I think I ended up paying $40 for it. That also became, that color orange, which is the international orange of the Golden Gate Bridge, that became our accent color. That font got carried through our website. Real simple. Just keep it simple. Here's the fun one, the assets. People always get this one wrong. All right, everybody pretty much gets a website, okay? Like there's not many companies that don't need a website. So everybody pretty much automatically knows that they need to get a website. You may not need a full service website. You may not be selling a product directly from it. But at the very least, you should have a branded, brochure site. And a branded brochure site is usually like the type where it's like 3 or 4, pages, maybe with a blog. My website, 5borough.us, is a branded website, branded brochure website. I have the about, a contact, all my services are on the front page, and I have a blog that I'm we always do a monthly blog. But for the most part, I feel that people either try to do too little or too much. You don't need to be on every social media. No one should be on every social media except for Coca-Cola and larger companies. I'm working with an insurance agency in Orange County. We're doing a rebrand for them. They had LinkedIn, they had Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. They had Pinterest. They also had YouTube. Half of those hadn't seen an update in 3 years. They blamed COVID. I was like, disable, take them offline. For the most part, most startups are going to be really fine with a website, branded brochure page, or what have you, a LinkedIn company page. Make sure you carry over your messaging to your personal profiles. And then I'm just kind of like dealer's choice. Like, okay, do you want Twitter? Do you want Facebook? Do you want Instagram? I have some people who do stuff with TikTok. I never recommend it to start. It's very intensive to really get that right. It's hard to get that right. But then Facebook or Instagram, it's really going to depend on the age of the buyer personas, like what the kind of perfect buyer is. That's going to really be dependent.
In Warner, is the way you choose just based on who your ICP is, kind of where you think your ICP is most likely to exist?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to talk about blogs. I know people, I see we have a hand raised. Let me just finish the sentence and then I'll go on, answer that question, or Andrew or Adam can answer that question. Blogs is always something that I do for all my clients. We always develop a monthly blog. It's usually always done on the first of the month or the first Monday of the month. The reason being is that blogs develop are content that can be reproduced in all the different platforms. One blog can generate 4 LinkedIn posts, 2 tweets per week, a Facebook post, what have you. Blogs are just a great way to develop a content calendar that the company can get behind and and develop content without having to reinvent the wheel. You can develop a blog. I mean, people use the chat GPTs for blogs and stuff. That's cool. It's great for a first draft. You have somebody who has some idea of kind of grammar and knowledge to check it. But one great thing is that once you get that blog produced, you can then feed that into chat GPT and say, develop 3 LinkedIn posts, develop 4 tweets, all with appropriate call to actions to wherever you want that call to action to be, usually back to the website. So I love blogs. I have a client here in San Francisco. I work with the Castro district. So the blog for this month is all about Pride and the history of Pride. And then we used it to highlight all the events that take place in San Francisco for Pride. Just developed a lot of great content for my social media manager. For me, we just started like a new thing where we're going to be doing quarterly themes. So the first quarter we're focusing on is crisis comms. So the blog that went out this June is like a history of crisis comms. Next month, it's going to be like tips and tools and how to develop a crisis management system. And then the third month is going to be some of my own personal experience with crisis. I just needed something to kind of help my staff. Like I felt after like 2 years, we felt that we needed to just kind of like develop a better system. So we're just going to do quarterly. Sorry that I didn't get to answer your question, but you can feel free to reach out to me.
In Warner, are there any key things, like since we are at time, right, there are key like takeaways that every startup should have? It sounds like basically just keep it simple, stupid, right? And yes, we'll make sure we get the slides, Zainab. But yeah, so basically just keep it simple, stupid is like the key takeaway, because everyone overthinks a lot of this stuff, and it's more just like get something up that's simple and straightforward.
That's it. I'm going to share here a website resource. This actually has a longer presentation, but the same material, also with a bunch of stuff. And I'm always happy to do a 15-minute audit with anybody. When it comes to website, this is what I always want to see. This represents kind of like above the fold on a website. When you first visit a website, what do you see on your screen? We either call that above the fold or we call that the hero area, right? So this is what I want to see when I go to a website. I want to see the logo in the upper left-hand side. I want to see that also be the home button. You don't need a home button anymore. We're all trained to know that the logo is the home button. I want to see the contact on the right-hand side. I want to see your brand promise or a hero line in that middle area, call to action on that left side. And then this is up to you, dealer's choice, what we call a transactional call to action on the right-hand side. 2 things about this. The reason this is in a Z formation is studies have shown that Americans in America, this is how we read a website. We open a website and we do a Z formation. So this is how I want to capture like the eye movement.
What's a call to action versus a transactional call to action?
Great question. Call to action is going to be like, it could be a contact, or it could be like, sign up for our it could be just something like read more. The transactional is when we're trying to get an email address usually. So top 10 tips on how to streamline your HR, processes. Give us your email address. So that's where it becomes transactional, is that they need to do something a little different, to give us a little piece of their own personal information. The superhero image is because we call this the hero area, but you might have a hero image. So we all know websites where we visit and we just see some text, a couple lines, like we do this service, we fix this problem, or you might see a picture of the product or a picture of the team. Whatever it is, it's fine. But this is essentially kind of like the basics. Just real quick on LinkedIn, people always overlook LinkedIn. I can't tell you how many startup founders, they just don't pay attention to their LinkedIn. We are trained to take a look at everybody's platforms. We're going to judge people if they haven't tweeted in 4 weeks or 6 months. If we're going to take a look at their website, this is how we do it. We're all trained to do this type of research. These are the 4 biggest problems I find with LinkedIn. This is an actual LinkedIn profile of a colleague who lives outside of the US, and will never know that I'm using it. But 1, you own that banner, okay? That area on LinkedIn, you own. That is the standard default LinkedIn banner, but you can change it. Number 2, most people don't have an actual headshot, or they don't have a good photo. Number 3, a lot of people just replicate whatever their current title is in this little about area. You own that. Say that you're a problem solver. Say that you're a startup. Say that you're a VC founder who, fixes lives. Don't put CEO. Because it's just reductive. You own that. And number 4 is that most people just don't bother to really try to fill it out. I don't need your resume, but put some effort into it. And if you don't have over 500 connections, go ahead and sync your Gmail to your LinkedIn tonight and just add people, because what LinkedIn will do is it'll show a full number under 500. So if you only have 193 connections, it'll say 193. It's only when you top 500 does it say 500 plus. That is something that I have heard from recruiters specifically. But so it's just a good notion.
Right, basically, it's better. It looks better to have at least 500 plus connections. The way you're saying.
Yeah, because I mean, who doesn't know 500 people, at least superficially, This is kind of really we're at the tail end of this, is essentially, what engagement is right. And it's really going to depend, on, most people don't have any money, so marketing, I ask people to choose 1 or 2 social media to really focus on, develop a content plan, have somebody who can, commit to doing the posts. It doesn't need to be every day. It may not be every week, but it needs to be some type of frequency that can be met. Only pick 1 or 2. And for the most part, I always recommend LinkedIn. If it's a physical, if the company has a physical presence, I would also recommend Google My Business. LinkedIn and Google are really trying to kind of own their slices of the internet. They have different algorithms that focus on different things, and these are just too important. If you want to have a Twitter, fine. The algorithm really has been crapping out on people who aren't paying money lately. I don't know why. So organic growth isn't as valuable. But if you develop a content plan, create a blog, feed into ChatGPT, and say, give me 4 weeks worth of posts, you already have the stuff cut out for you, and you can just add it to it. Media, it really depends on the industry and the location. Most people aren't going to have money to hire somebody like me. Media relations, you're paying for effort, not results. That's just how it happens. But if you're in a small town and you're a startup, find out who the Business Journal editor is and send a note. Honestly, that works. San Francisco is a little more difficult, so you might have to get a little creative. But depending on what you're doing, there's going to be opportunities for you. So just a little elbow grease and research. I think this is my last main slide. Everything I just said really comes down to this. 50% of good branding is simple consistency. And your hero line, your logo, your colors, your icons, your fonts, all of that just needs to be carried over. That's it. This is what some people pay me stupid money for. So don't tell them. But, and then, and altogether, this will help you stand out, increase awareness, and lead to sales. And that's all we care about at the end of the day.
Warner.
I fed my info. You guys have a link. Feel free to reach out or whatever you'd like to do.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's great advice for every founder and startup, just consistency. I also think repeatability and just saying the same thing over and over again and being comfortable repeating yourself, because a lot of founders think, well, I've already said it. And my view is just say it again and again and again and again and again. The same thing, consistency over and over and over again. Because your audience, you never know when they've heard it before or if they're in the right mindset. So this is great advice. Thank you so much.